Okay. Welcome, low ego action heroes. The Wi-Fi here is not great. I'm going to do my best to do a live Q&A AMA. It's Ask Me Anything. You can send something in to deltacx.com/links and or you can put it right here in the chat. I am looking at the chat. I am on vacation, so you are catching me on my travel computer, which is why it might be a little choppy, but hopefully sounds okay, even if it doesn't look great. And the Wi-Fi here is not great. Hi, Charlene. How are you? Miss you. And let's see, what else can I tell you? I don't have any questions ahead of time. So if you have a question, you will be the first on the list. And go ahead and get that in the chat if you don't mind your name on it, or the other method if you would like it to be a little bit more secret or you have a longer story to tell. And let me make sure I've got my email open to make sure I see them coming in because they come in through email. And also, I want to take a quick moment to thank everybody who is part of my paid Patreon group. Of course, we also have a free Patreon level, so you are welcome to join at either level. Most of the things going to the paid Patreons go to the free Patreons about 2 weeks later. So, thanks to everybody who is helping to financially support my universe with the Patreon. You can check it out at patreon.com/CXCC. Hello, Ana Lucia. And what I can also tell you that we have an experimental new group that has about 47 members in it, and we're calling it a mastermind and support group. It's for all of you low ego action heroes who are currently working full-time, part-time, freelance, projects, agency, whatever it might be, but looking for people who are working and need some help and support, especially where you're not getting it from management or leadership. That's cxcc.to/support-group. So many new URLs to tell you about. I've also put up some new cohort courses, and I'm working on another one. You can check those out at cxcc.to/courses. They are not in the events calendar yet. I will have to put that on the to-do list, the vacation to-do list. Let's see. Add cohorts to a calendar, event calendar. But you can still sign up for the waiting list or just go ahead and register for those. So not only do we have two space workshops coming up, which is strategizing products and customer experiences, but I'm going to be writing a brand new course because a bunch of people asked me about this, all independently. It's going to be about writing, presenting, and public speaking. Hey, Diana. So, if you have always wanted to be better at writing presentations, whether those are work presentations or conference talks, this is not going to be UX specific. You can recommend this course to anybody you know who has to do work presentations or wants to get more into conference speaking. This will be for you. So, go to cxcc.to/cohorts, COHORTS, and you can already sign up for that, even though I am still writing it. It will be in late September into October. And let's see, I don't have any questions yet. So if we don't have any questions and it goes on for a few more minutes, I'm just going to wrap up today because it is my work day. Although it is the last week at my current job at Arizona State University, I'm sorry to say this is the last office hours I might be doing during that work day. And then I will also, let's see, we have our Thursday mastermind support group call. I'll be at that. And then I think Friday is critical thinking stream. And if the weather's nicer, I'll try to do it from outside so you can get a view of what I'm seeing, which is absolutely beautiful. I was thinking about broadcasting from outside, but it's been raining today, so hopefully I'll be able to bring all of you out to my vacation. So if there aren't questions, again, we can always wrap this up, and I'll just say a quick hello to everybody. But hopefully everybody's doing okay. And yeah, there you go. Oh, can you use your Starlink when you're in a camper? And where are you today? Okay, those are interesting questions for sure. I'll put them on the list of questions just so that the matches up with the YouTube description. And also check that, let's see, Where's my questions? Okay, there we go. So, can we bring Starlink out in the camper with us? We actually can, but we didn't. So we thought that we were going to have better service than we have right now. Unfortunate. We you know did not get that one right. I could be on my phone hotspot. It's not the worstest service. I mean, the stream seems to be okay. The video might be a little blippy sometimes. That's my travel computer also. But gee, I'm having problems copying and pasting people's questions today. There we go. There we go. That's better. So yeah, we have the version of Starlink that you can take with you, but it is a few problems there. It's large and it's heavy, and you have to put it out. You have to put the satellite out, and you have to hope you have a good view of the sky, and then you have to pay extra. So if you have the Starlink stationary at home, it is one price. We pay about 40 euros a month for it, and then if you start moving around with the Starlink, I think it's 100 euros a month. Now, you can go on and off of that. You can say, "Ooh, I just want to be mobile for 1 month." We could have done that, but we just figured, you know what, we'll probably either have decent Wi-Fi where we are, or we'll use our phone hotspots, and that's kind of what we've been doing. So yes, so the 40 euros a month is not that bad, but the 100 is quite a jump, and so we decided not to bring it, though we do have the portable or mobile version, but it's pretty big. I mean, it's a pretty big dish, and we wouldn't necessarily, I don't think we have a place for it at the top of our camper. We'd have to just throw it out on the ground. And there you go there. And then Diana asks, where are you? In general, I don't like to give my exact location for safety reasons, but I would say that we are in very, very northern Italy, near the Austria border. We're out for 2 weeks, and we have 1 week in this location and 1 week in a location where we were at last year. So if anybody saw my streams from last year's vacation, you might recognize one of the locations. We'll be back there. So we are in the South Tyrol. Is that how people say it in English? The Sud Tirolo area, where Italy is very north and used to be Austria. Borders, always a tough topic, in my opinion. So many people have German as their native language here, and they also speak Italian, and yeah. So that is where we are. We're in our camper, and thank you, honey. Welcome back. This is the ladder up to where my husband sleeps, and this is my backpack, and this is the IKEA clothes hamper. So this is the front of the truck. So we've just stuffed a lot of stuff in the front of the truck. The rest of the camper looks pretty organized, but I don't think you can see it. UX on wheels, yeah. See the UX tour, yeah. So I'll be out here after that. My calendar will open up. Thank you, Deanna. So far, our travel's been a little weird. We went from 34 Celsius and humid back home to up here. It's been cold and dry and 10 at night and 16 during the day, and we both feel like so we're hoping tomorrow we'll get out, and it's been raining today. Hopefully tomorrow we'll get out and take a walk. And we thought we were going to be near bicycle paths, and it turns out we're 6 kilometers from the bicycle paths. So so much for lots of good research that we tried to do. I am not seeing any questions yet today about work. It's always fun to talk to everybody about not work, but certainly I'm here to try to help people out with whatever is happening with jobs and work. That's the only summer we know in Belgium, cold and rainy, says Gianna. Yeah, yeah. I think we got some of that weather here, but back home on Sardinia, summer is truly thick and hot and blah. So we'll go home to that in just under 2 weeks. I'll be back at my desk on the July 8th. Oh, excuse me. A good question for anybody who's joining live is, since I'm going to be writing these new courses, which probably won't be free, but I'm trying to make them fairly priced and offer some discounts to people who are active in my community. Are there any topics that people would like me to write courses about? Because when my job ends and I'm back from vacation, I'm going to be just writing full time. I'm not working on another book. I'm going to be making courses. So I'm curious what people would like to learn more about. Ana Lucia, by the way, have you ever thought about why UX democratization happened and is happening? I've been talking with Swetha about it due to the certain person we all know that started talking about it. Yes, let me copy and paste that so I can get it down as a question. And then I will give you my best thoughts on that for what they're worth. Okay, let's see. And if you hear woof woof, that is probably Bingo the dog. We have a neighbor with 2 dogs, and we keep hearing them telling them to be quiet, so we've learned their names. Okay, so let's put this up. So the origins of what we call the democratization of UX are extremely slippery from what I can remember from having lived through it. First, maybe 6, 7 years ago or so, we heard the word democratization because we normally heard it around, Charlene says design strategy and service design. Oh, and what is my, okay, we've got questions. Well, we'll add this one to, after this one. So I remember people saying democratization some years ago, but they didn't mean it the way it ended up being it meant now. They mostly meant it like, hey, UX is often in a silo, and if researchers do research, they're going to have all this information and they're not sharing it with everybody, so we have to democratize that. In that, we're giving everyone access to it. Usually when we use the word democratize, we mean we're giving lots of people access to something they didn't have access to. Design strategy and service design. I will write that down. Design strategy. Okay. So what ended up happening was, while we weren't looking, someone changed what democratization meant, because originally it just meant don't put UX in a silo, don't have them just doing research and not sharing that information out with others, make sure that that information's available. You started hearing more about research repositories that was supposed to cure the problem or help fix it, and that was going to democratize the research findings and insights and suggestions. And then all of a sudden, people were saying, no, if we really want to democratize research, then everyone has to do the research, not just have access to the research results. And I think that what we should have done was fight that, because no one else's job was being democratized. No one else was saying, you know what, everyone should do product management, or everyone should write code, or everyone should create marketing campaigns. All of those jobs were continued to be seen as specialties, and nobody was saying, hey, that's for everybody. So there's a very big difference between the typical definition of democratization, which is let's give everybody access to this. But remember, in a democracy, not everybody might vote, but not everybody rules or governs or has the position of power or leads. And so the problem is that a lot of people thought that democratization of UX, and especially research, meant everyone gets to lead, everyone gets to govern, everyone gets to do the work. And I think that came about from a number of different people. You had, I'm going to ask a very silly question, but is UX strategy and design strategy the same thing? Maybe. Let's get that question on the list. We'll put that, that kind of goes with Deanna's question. So we'll put these two together. So you had loud UX voices out there who were trying to say, everybody's a designer and anyone can research, and even some famous people or people we think of as famous were out there saying, yeah, everybody can and should do research. Research is for everybody. And that started getting pretty muddy because when I think about what it takes to do research well, I think about how I don't want everybody doing that. I just don't. When I think about what it takes to do strategy well, I don't want everybody doing that. So, unfortunately, why did democratization happen? I've written a number of articles about this, and it's a combination of famous UX people trying to make themselves rich by selling training UX to non-UX people, and also different roles trying to grab our work because our work is high value and they wanted to be seen doing the high value work. And then lots of gaslighting, like, oh, if you don't let everybody do your work, you're not a team player, you're not agile, you're in a silo. None of these things are true, but there was a lot of gaslighting, and I think that these are some of the main reasons why it happened. I've been trying to push back against it for many years, and I think a lot of UX leaders thought it was one of those things that would run its course or go out of style, and I think they didn't see what has come of it, and I think that's unfortunate because what has come of it is quite bad and might mean the end of many jobs. So, boop boop a doop. Okay, let's talk a little bit about strategy. So we've got Diana asking, what is your definition of UX strategy? And Charlene adding to that, saying, is UX, that should probably be an X, is UX strategy and design strategy the same thing? And that's going to be a bit of an it depends, only because there are some people who say that UX is design, design with a capital D. Design is human-centered design, and if you see UX and design with a capital D as the same thing, then your design strategy is your UX strategy. And Ana Lucia says greediness and selfishness in the root cause. I think that's one of the root causes for sure, because I can name some people, though I won't, who I'm sure got very rich teaching product managers and engineers to do our work mediocrely or poorly. So let's talk about strategy. When we think about UX strategy, there's a few different ways to think about it. We could be thinking about the overarching strategy for what we're trying to accomplish for the users. So, for example, a not strategic way to approach product would be, hey, we have a list of features. Congratulations, we have a to-do list. But that's not necessarily strategic. That's not necessarily product strategy. Just because we have a list of features doesn't mean we have a strategy. So the strategy takes a look at what are we trying to do and how are we going to get there? Why are we doing this? So we might say that we have an overarching user or customer experience strategy that would have a sort of, it could even have a high level vision. We talk about this in the space workshop where the strategy could be how we are looking at the larger project. What are we doing and why? It's funny. I had a conversation like this yesterday at my job where I talked about how one of our research studies kind of got a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for, disorganized. And I wanted to talk about how it became disorganized so we don't let that happen again. And I said one of the things that was disorganized about it was that we never really knew why we were doing the research. What's the goal of this research? Why do we need to find these things out? And is anybody going to take action on these things when we find them out? And someone chimed in and said, but we ended up with a list of good questions to ask people. So, doesn't that answer that? And I said, well, that's what we did tactically. Tactically, we asked these questions. Strategically, we're not too sure why we did this research. We're not too sure what people were really trying to know or understand. We had a hard time getting our stakeholders to tell us what was really at the heart of why they wanted to ask some of these questions and what kind of action would be taken to follow through on anything that the research learned. So we can take a look at, so to me, the questions you ask might be, the tactics of how you go about the research, but the strategy are really those larger goals. Why are we doing this? And I think a UX strategy would take a look at what are we trying to achieve for the users. We probably know that the business is trying to get people to convert or buy more, or the business wants people to do a thing. I get it, but that's not necessarily going to be the UX strategy. The UX strategy is going to look more at how we satisfy, if not delight, one or more sets of target users by delivering something to them that is a great match for their unmet needs. And Deanna says, should UX strategy also cover business goals? I think it's always smart to have business goals somewhere in there. Obviously, if you're looking at the user experience, you don't want business goals to necessarily win out over the user experience. You don't want to say, we've learned through our research that users need a better way to do X, but because our business goals say sell more things to the people, we're just going to try to sell more things to the people. That's an example of where the business goals have kind of bulldozed and rolled over what your UX strategy could have been. I think they can be on the same page, as Deanna's asking, if we can show, and this is part of what my Delta CX impact map is about, which it was in the episode on the CXCC channel about, it was like called 2 workshops or something. If you search for CX-CC 2 workshops, I think they should come up, but it was the impact map. And that's taking a look at how do we tie something going wrong for users to the impact on the business? Hey, this is not going right for users, so this is what it means to the business. These are the customers we're not getting, or these are the customers we're losing, or these are the sales we're not getting, or these are the people who are downgrading. So I think that there are ways to tie these two things together. It's a little bit harder. It can sometimes take a little bit of digging to find out what some of these impacts have been, but ultimately, to me, the UX strategy takes a look at what are we doing and why, mostly from the perspectives of what the user experience will be, and secondarily from the perspective of the business. Because again, if we put the business first, then who's putting the user first? Because usually, but not always, the product managers are putting the business first. Sometimes the engineers are putting the business first. Who's putting the user first? So usually, and that's part of why people recommend that trio or triad, where they say, look, you'll have the engineers who are mostly thinking about technology. You have a product manager who's mostly thinking about business and business impact and business growth. And then you have a UX person who's usually mostly thinking about user impact, customer impact, experiences, outcomes. Are we meeting people's needs? Is this usable, desirable, accessible, all of that stuff? So the strategy to me is what are we doing and why, and how will we get there? And I can't give you an example of any of the strategies I've cooked up for any clients because they would be confidential. I know Larry's book, Disruptive Research, goes into determining the UX strategy a bit, and my space course goes into it a bit. But mostly to me, the best way to determine the strategy is to go by your qualitative research data. It can be hard to come up with a good larger overarching strategy from, hey, we ran a survey, or hey, we talked to 2 customers and they think we should have more buttons. That's tactics. That's just make a thing. What about a higher level strategy? So when you think about it, at the top you've got goals. What are the goals? What are your users trying to accomplish in our system, or what do they wish they could accomplish in our system that they're using a different system for now? And then you have the initiatives. How are we going to achieve those goals? What projects are we putting in place to achieve those goals? And all of this, in my opinion, is part of your strategy. I haven't read the O'Reilly UX strategy book. I've heard some good things about it. But that's the way I look at it, is we have these goals. We have So what's our that I know it's hard to, I keep saying strategy. Like what's the strategy? It's the strategy. I can't give you an example because they're confidential. Am I helping at all? And then as for UX strategy and design strategy, it really depends. If you think design with a capital D, human-centered design, they could be the same thing. If you think design is just the kind of information architecture interaction design part of it, then you would just be looking at what is your strategy for achieving the goals that your design should achieve. So, based on our research, we learned that people need a thing, people have this, we have a problem statement. People have a hard time doing this. Okay, that's something that we could solve. So, our strategy for our design might be to solve that problem without creating new problems and to solve it in a way that is usable, desirable, accessible, valuable, the usual list of things. That would be our strategic approach to that. And then we follow through on that strategy tactically by doing information architecture, interaction design, prototypes, testing them, improving them, things like that. Is that making some sense? Maybe I'm just in vacation mode and I'm not saying the things as I would hope to. But any follow-up questions? Let me see if there are any other questions coming through the system. No. Makes sense. Okay, yeah, sorry. It's a little bit fluffy. It's always better if I have an example to work with, but I don't right now, only because where I've done strategy, it's been confidential, and I'm trying to think of ways to express it without breaching that confidentiality, but it's so hard. I think about the way Larry puts it in the Disruptive Research book. Yeah, thanks, Armida. Um, Larry talks about, if you read even the first chapter of Larry's book, he talks about ProFlowers, a project he worked on a very long time ago. And originally, the company came to him and said, just see where you can make our website a little bit better. But he decided to do a much larger research project and try to figure out where this company could really be disruptive and become a real leader and jump way ahead of competitors. And based on his research, he found that most people shopping for flowers weren't shopping exactly for the flower. They weren't saying, give me 2 daffodils and 3 lilies and 4 whatevers. They were saying, uh-oh, I forgot my wife's birthday, or this is what's going on. They knew their occasion or situation, and the florist would say, here's what's good for that. And so his strategic approach was ProFlowers sells occasions. And you can see how that has kind of a high level strategy ring to it. It doesn't say any particular solution. It's not a picture of a screen. It's not a project plan. It's not, don't worry about it. It's not, it's not user flows. It's not a task analysis. It's just ProFlower sells occasions. Okay, so that means our focus is going to be on occasions, matching people up with occasions. How do we do it from here? From here, I don't know. Larry will have to do his task analysis and optimize task flow and make his recommendations. That's getting into the work and into the tactics. Yeah, Charlene says, I remember that part of the book. And Ana Lucia says, I love that example. Yeah, Diana says, I was going to ask for book recommendations. You mentioned O'Reilly. Yeah, I haven't read the UX strategy book by Jamie Levy from O'Reilly, but I have heard people say some good things about it. So I'm hoping it's good, but I have to admit I have not read it. But yeah, I think if you think about ProFlower sells occasions as a very high level strategy, you can see that it's hypothetically, it might shift a mindset in the company. So it could mean a lot of change change. And it could mean different projects. It could mean design. It could mean additional research. It could mean experimentation. There's a lot of things it can mean, but at this point, it's just a strategy. It's just, this is where we're going to go. We're going to be focused on occasions. While all the other websites that sell flowers want you to pick out your flowers or put together your own bouquet, we're going to help you shop just the way you shop in a regular flower shop, which is, it's the occasion. Someone's getting married, someone died, it's a holiday of some sort. That's the way we think about flowers. Most of us don't know what flowers go with what, and that's where it also gets into knowledge design, which is heavily featured in Larry's disruptive research book as well. So I definitely recommend disruptive research. I can't hold it up. I don't have one with me. I'm on vacation, but that's a good example of a high strategy that then becomes and more research, more design work, more testing, more all kinds of things. And so, but it doesn't exactly say what the solution looks like. It just says, hey, based on the research we did, this is where our focus should be. This is where we're going to make things great for users. And this is where we're going to make things great for the business is going to sell more flowers if we do it this way, because this is going to make more sense to people. So that's the part of it where you can say, aha, there is some of the business or business goals in there, because in general, the business doesn't want to do something for users or customers or potential customers that doesn't also help the business. So tying them together where possible makes sense. Ana Lucia says, those insights really had such a big impact. It ended up changing how the whole business perceives selling flowers and why. Yeah, exactly. And it drove them far ahead of their competition and ended up becoming the norm for a lot of websites. A lot of flower websites now, they don't say build your own bouquet necessarily, whereas they used to. Now they say, what are you shopping for? Or who are you shopping for? Or what's the occasion or holiday? And they try to list out all these seasons and holidays. Sorry, I'm getting a little Wi-Fi blip here at the campground. Hopefully it'll level out soon. Hopefully you can still hear me, even if the video's a little blippy. The Wi-Fi here is sad. Which is sad given what we're paying for this. So yeah, that's a few things that I would say about strategy. It's very easy to end up very heavily in the tactics of what we end up doing, planning the work, doing the work. But then sometimes we look at each other and we go, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? And sometimes there are answers to that, and they're all business-driven answers. Well, if we can make people click this button more, the business wins, grows, succeeds. Cool. But we're probably not going to have long-term success, and sometimes not even short-term success, if we're not doing something great for the users. There's only so much that we can push them and trick them and bully them and manipulate them until they go, well, what am I doing here? Armita says, that's a great point. Everything is about revenue. Yeah, that's right. I think Larry wouldn't have gotten away with Pros Flower Sells Occasions if he weren't able to tie it back to, but this is the way the user behaves. This is the user's perception of the task. The user's perception of the task isn't pick 12 flowers and put them together and make them look good and make them symbolic for the occasion. We don't know how to do that. Most of us don't. We don't know the right flowers for the right occasion. We go into the florist and we say, help, or hey, it's this religious event, or hey, someone died, and the florist goes, this is the right stuff for that. They're not going to give you romantic red roses for a death in the family, and they know the secret language. We can hear you. Good. Thank you. But ultimately, I think if Larry was able to show, look, this is going to make us more money because it ties more closely into how people normally behave when shopping for flowers. And right now, websites are taking them out of that normal behavior by expecting them to build their own bouquet and understand more about flowers than they do. But ProFlowers was still risking it because since no other online florist was doing this, they didn't have anybody to point to and say, well, it worked for them or it didn't work for them. So cool. Now we can copy that. They decided to go ahead and try being first to market with this idea. And if you've read Larry's story in his book or you've heard him tell the story, you know that the next thing that happened was the developers didn't build what Larry's team designed. The developers just they just didn't. They made some changes, but they still made it a website based on building a bouquet. The website failed. The company called Larry asking for their money back, and he said, "What are you talking about?" And he realized that they hadn't followed his instructions. They had built something different because they thought it was too weird. It was too weird to shop by occasion. They thought it couldn't possibly be right. So then they said, "No, developers, please go build it the way we designed it." And they were able to release it. And then, of course, within a relatively short period of time, it turned out to be extremely successful. But again, that's tough because a lot of companies claim they want to be innovative. They claim they want to take risks. And then when you bring them something like this, they go, nah, 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 just copy what Home Depot's doing. Just copy what, that store is doing. And so it's like, wait, I thought we were innovative and experimental and open to taking risks and we don't mind failing. Why don't we do it? So it's interesting. So yeah, but it starts, to me, the strategy comes from what we learn in research. I think a lot of people think get a list of features and then build a strategy around that. But I'm always concerned that if the features sound good to the business but are unlikely to be right for our customers, congratulations on having your features and your to-do list, and you can probably reverse engineer a strategy around them, but that doesn't mean that it's the right strategy. And it doesn't mean that you've done this in the right order. And I find that when a lot of you come to me privately and you say, oh, wow, we're just the feature factory. We're just building stuff. And I say, well, why? Why are you making that? Why does this project exist? And a lot of people say, we don't know. I say, well, what's the strategy behind it? What are you doing and why? And a lot of people say, I don't know. And as far as we can tell, a lot of what's going on at companies is, hey, product teams and UX and engineers just build this thing that the company thinks will make them more money, and hopefully it's not too bad for the users. Yeah, we'll find out later if it sucks. And I think that is slow and wasteful and risky. And then when people get these low NPS scores and low customer satisfaction scores and customers leaving or downgrading, then people are like, gee, what happened? This is so weird. And everyone's shrugging and looking at each other. How did this happen? And I'm always like, this is so obvious. Yeah, Ana Lucia says the C-suite said we should do this and in this way. Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of that. Sometimes sometimes we in UX fight with our VP of product or a chief product officer or somebody else who says to them, look, just do this. I've seen that at companies where I've worked. Someone said, look, the most important thing that can happen is users need to click this button because that's the KPI that we're looking at. We're looking at this button being, don't want to click that button any more than they need to. They want to click it as little as possible. They want this to be more efficient. And then the business says, no, we believe that more clicks on this button is better. So our strategic approach is do whatever we have to do to get people to click this more. And that's when you start seeing weird stuff, unethical stuff, kooky stuff, weird experiments. And I write about it in the Customers Know You Suck book. And then we'll go back to Diana's question. Armita says, it's such a pain when clients or stakeholders won't trust a data-driven design decision. Yeah, absolutely. And it's so weird because they love data everywhere else. Everywhere else, they go, well, look, the survey said we should do this. Everybody line up and do this. Or we had 4 people in a focus group and they like this, so that must be the answer. In general, our companies do like research. They do want it. They do trust it. But for some reason, when it's qual or it comes from UX, all of a sudden it's like, oh, no, we can't trust that. That's just too weird. Okay, Diana says, are there any frameworks to set or decide a strategy? Ooh, you know me. I am not great with just follow this framework. Let's put that question up. And hold on, I'm having I'm slow today at multitasking on my travel computer. So let's put this up. Um, so I don't think of their as being a framework. Normally, I find that once I have all of the qualitative research data, it kind of jumps out at me. And sometimes a strategy can be quite broad. So, say, for example, not even sure if that should be a question. No, it's a fine question. I'm not against people asking me if there are good frameworks for it, but it's not like I don't think like if you just fill out this canvas, you'll know your strategy. To me, strategy comes from the evidence. And it comes from people who are creative problem solvers. People who are creative problem solvers normally see the observations and the set of data, especially the qualitative data, and they go, I get what's going on here. I see what's going on here. Okay, here's what's going on here. And here's not exactly the exact solution. We're still solution agnostic when we're deciding on the strategy, but here's the general direction we probably want to go in. Like some of you have heard me tell, and they thought that their target audience's biggest problem was being unmotivated, and they thought that they should become a motivation platform. Our research showed that the problem wasn't motivation, and that the people who were unmotivated were probably not in the target audience. You were probably not going to motivate people to do this thing. It was just not on their radars, and it will be someday, but not now. And so, what can we do with the people who are motivated? What do they need, and how can we address their needs? And so that's where I came up with the overarching strategy for that startup to kind of express where I believed the startup should go. What is this startup solving? And quite generally and high level, how? X does Y for Z. So unfortunately, I think that, you'll see a lot of these frameworks and canvases where they say, well, fill out this box. What's the business goal? Fill out this box. What do users need? Fill out this box. What's your hypothesis? Ultimately, these canvases just take things we already think or assume or know and put them in boxes. They don't help us stumble, usually, they don't help us stumble onto something we didn't already know or have. It's not Mad Libs. Americans might know Mad Libs. It's not Mad Libs for strategy, where if you just fill in these boxes, wow, the whole thing just appears before your eyes. It's really a creative problem solving type of thing. So I can't say, ooh, if you just fill in these boxes, because you're welcome to go look at these weird canvases and box based things, and they're mostly you're writing in there what you assume. Most of them are assumptions. They're not even facts. It's just assumptions layered on top of assumptions. It's your guessing lasagna. And then at the end, you try to reverse engineer some strategy from all of your assumptions. And I don't think that's the right way to build a strategy. So I don't have like a framework or canvas or template that would help you with that. That's where it gets hard. Deanna says, I guess I mean, where do you start after the research and the data? Yeah, so this is taught in space. I could swear you took space, Deanna. No, you're in the next space workshop. That's why I keep thinking I've seen your name. Hopefully you got the email that I'm moving space to Maven. Did you get that email? So as these are all like space previews. So again, check out space, cxcc.to/cohorts, COHORTS. Should be my new page with all of my cohort-based courses, which are going to be at least partially live. So, after you do your research and you have your data, in my opinion, the next thing you do is you write your problem statements. What's really going on for the users? Could you write a business-focused problem statement? You could. I'm not against that, but I don't want that to completely be a lawnmower over the user-focused problem statements. We're ultimately here to solve users' problems. If we solve business problems, or at least we try to, but we didn't solve problems for the user, or we created problems for the user, chances are we're not going to see a lot of great business success because people will say, you didn't give me what I needed. I'll get back to this. I did and I am. Okay, good. Ana Lucia says, I'm not against templates or forms because it helps us organize information in a good visual way, but it's important to understand the process, the hows and the whys. Yeah, like I'm not against people writing stuff on a page, but sometimes the people who make these templates and forms promise like, ooh, and at the end of this, you'll have your strategic approach to boop, bop, a beep. And I always find that you're reverse engineering a strategy based on things you've been assuming. And I think that that is not necessarily the right way to go and could be carts before horses, as we say. So after your research and data, I believe the best next step are problem statements. Users have this problem. Users face this issue. Based on how people try to do this now, here's where it's inefficient, expensive, hard to learn, hard to use, easy to make mistakes. Everybody think about all of Larry's stuff. Knowledge dependent, high cognitive load, four horsemen of bad UX, frustrating, confusing, disappointing, distracting. These are all problem statements, or at least we build problem statements around having observed and learned about these things. And that doesn't mean we know the solutions to these problems. It just means we're cataloging all of the problems that we found. Before we come up with solutions to these problems, next I like to see, and I think Larry recommends this as well, problem prioritization. Before we start attacking these problems, let's be strategic. Which are the most important problems to address first? Which are going to have great value to the user? Which are going to have great value to the business? Okay, it's a little bit of a give and take there, or maybe we can find some user-focused problem statements that will benefit users and benefit the business. And so these are some of your next steps. We go over this it's in my book because space is kind of a workshop version of my book, so I think it's chapter 20, but I've freshened it up and rewritten it a little bit, and so it'll be on the, if you're doing the 3-day version of space, it's on day 3. If you do the 2-day version of space, it's on day 2. Error prone, yes, that's another great one that Larry talks about. So, but again, there you just know the problem. Hey, people tend to make this mistake. But that's before we're asking ourselves, now, how do we fix it? Or what are possible solutions? We're just looking at the problem statements and making sure we understand that problem from a lot of different angles. What does this problem mean to a user? What does it mean to their manager? What does it mean to our company? What does it mean to a reseller? That's where I think understanding your larger experience ecosystem makes sense, and we can see what's really going on in this problem from lots of different angles. And then later on, once we've prioritized it and we know what we want to work on first, then we could say, aha, here's some possible solutions. And then you can start playing with possible solutions. But I don't like to see people play with possible solutions until they fully understood the experience ecosystem, the problems, and all of that evidence and data. I think coming up with solutions or ideas or hypotheses before that can sometimes work, but too often ends up trying to reverse engineer. You know you're reverse engineering when someone says, well, I want to do this idea. Can you think of reasons why people might want it? So beware of that. I'm going to write that down. So, note to self. Don't do that. All right, we are just about out of time. So thanks to everybody who joined in. I thought we were going to end up with not much to talk about, but there you go. I will see people in the Mastermind Support Group on Thursday in Discord for our weekly group coaching call. And I will see some people over on the Delta CX channel on Friday for practicing critical thinking. And then I will be doing this show next Tuesday as well from our other vacation spot, hopefully outdoors. Hopefully it won't be raining. But who knows? Looks like a lot of rain is coming. So everybody stay dry, and depending upon where you live, stay cool or warm. And yeah, thanks again for coming. And I will cue up the flames at the end of the show and catch y'all soon. Thanks. Bye.